am Clara Ingram, a 29-year-old woman living in Bristol, England, where the scenery is a lovely mix of vibrant urban life and rich history. I work as a project manager for a tech company and enjoy all the challenges that my role entails. I am diligent, organized, and always strive to keep the peace, whether at work or in my personal life. However, I have an adventurous streak that emerges when provoked, especially when I am pushed to my limits. Now picture this. It was a busy summer afternoon at the Bristol airport, a bustling hive of travelers buzzing with excitement as flights were taking off and landing. I was headed to a long-awaited vacation in Greece, where sun, sand, and relaxation awaited me. I had spent months planning this trip, daydreaming about the stunning landscapes and sun-soaked beaches. My mind was already there, but first, I had to make it through the airport. As I approached the security line, everything seemed to be in a state of organized chaos. I thought I was ready, but I was still wearing my canvas sneakers and cargo pants, lugging a carry-on bag that was stuffed to the brim with my essentials. This was not my first experience at an airport, so I was prepared for the long queues, the impatient travelers, and the sudden gate changes. But nothing could prepare me for what happened next. Just as I was preparing to show my boarding pass, an unapologetic lady who looked to be in her 40s, dressed in designer clothes and oozing an air of entitlement, casually stepped in front of me. I could not believe my eyes as she cut me off without so much as a glance in my direction. My heart raced. This was not some silly line-cutting incident. This was a blatant act of disregard that was as irritating as it was unexpected. I stood there in disbelief. Did she seriously think that was acceptable behavior? The line continued to inch forward, and I was growing more and more agitated by her nonchalance. My vacation was at stake. I closed my eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. I started talking myself down. At the end of the day, I wanted to enjoy my getaway. But when I opened my eyes and noticed the lady casually pulling out her phone, my blood began to boil again. This could not go unpunished. My world felt off-kilter, and I realized I was not satisfied with how things were unfolding. This lady had to learn a lesson in humility. At first, I attempted the polite approach. I tapped her shoulder and said, "Excuse me, I think I was next in line," hoping a gentle reminder would be a good enough way to convey my displeasure. To my utter shock, she turned around, rolled her eyes, and retorted, "I do not have time for this." She turned back around as if I did not even exist, and that rejection ignited a fiery determination within me. This woman had become my nemesis, a caricature of everything that is wrong with people sometimes. I was not going to let her get away with this. I realized then that this was an opportunity to bring a dose of justice to this little corner of the airport. I quickly decided on my strategy. How could I teach her that her behavior had consequences without resorting to outright confrontation? I decided to make her journey to her gate as inconvenient as possible, thinking that perhaps a bit of her own medicine would give her insight into how wrong she was. I was also buoyed by the idea that a little fun at her expense might distract me from my growing frustrations about the vacation that had just been tainted. As the security line finally moved, I kept one eye on her. She was blissfully unaware of my intentions. I followed her as we both proceeded to the metal detectors, reveling in the chance to continue my little plan. I made sure to keep my distance, pretending to check my phone every now and then as I hung back, but the moment I cleared security, I dashed into a nearby shop to buy a bottle of water and an overpriced chocolate bar, hoping to buy myself time. I eagerly awaited for her to get ahead of me so I could resume my stealthy pursuit. Once I was back in the terminal, I tracked her movement towards the gate, making sure to appear casual as I sauntered behind her. I lost track of time, but it felt like I was on a secret mission, determined to give this entitled woman a run for her money. I was like a hawk, watching every move she made as she strutted unbothered through the terminal, as if she owned the place. And there she was, pausing near a group of travelers who were happily chatting, showing no signs of concern for the chaos she left behind. As we approached the terminal's main gate area, I spotted a sign that indicated her flight was departing soon. I knew I had to step up my game. So, instead of walking too closely behind her, I calculated my moves carefully, weaving in and out of the crowd. I even pretended to stop at various shops, grabbing random souvenirs and checking my phone for any pictures of the places I would potentially visit. All the while, I kept an eye on her, ticked off yet somewhat entertained by the sparkle in my plan. It became evident that the flight had already started boarding when we reached the gate. The moment she stepped in front of the line of passengers waiting to board, I felt an exhilarating sense of satisfaction. With determination, I marched up right next to her, stared her down, and in my most determined voice said, "Excuse me, do you not see that there is a line here? You cut in front of me earlier." She glanced over with that same disdainful expression and made her way to the staff member at the boarding gate, ignoring me entirely. In that moment, it struck me that I had not just lost my confidence, I had become more passionate about ensuring my revenge panned out. I stepped forward and exclaimed, "Excuse me, I just wanted to point out that this lady cut in line at security. She should really reflect on her actions before being rewarded for them." The stunned silence that followed was electric, with other travelers turning to look. I could sense the energy shift. Some began to murmur in agreement, while others exchanged glances, ready to judge her. I felt emboldened by their support. The boarding gate attendant, a young man with tired eyes, raised an eyebrow at the conflict that had erupted. Clearly, he had seen too much of this kind of behavior already. "Ma'am, is that true?" he asked her, his voice firm. She turned slowly, clearly irritated, and stated, "I did not mean to offend. I have a flight to catch." The attendant frowned, looking back at me and then at her again. "Well, if you cut in line at security and you have upset another passenger, I must insist you step back and join the line. Rules are rules," he replied. My heart raced as I watched her expressions shift from irritation to outrage, realizing that her world was beginning to unravel. "But I am a platinum member. I have privileges," she protested, clearly flustered. The attendant remained unmoving, holding his ground with an air of authority. As this unavoidable dilemma unfolded, the crowd around us began murmuring again, their sympathy shifting towards me. I felt a surge of triumph blooming within my chest. The woman crossed her arms, her cheeks flushed with anger. "I do not have to listen to this," she insisted, though I could see the uncertainty creeping into her bravado. I looked at her and said, "Well, maybe you should think about every other person in line who just wants to get to their destination. It cannot be that hard to understand it's about fairness and respect." That was my final shot. Both the attendant and the gathering crowd were listening, and I felt as if I had gained an ally in the steward of order. Finally, the attendant, with a hint of determination on his face, said, "This is the boarding process, ma'am. Either you go to the back, or you will be asked to leave." I felt exhilarated as I saw the reality of her predicament fully dawn on her. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, she could not simply charm her way out. It was a wonderful sight to behold. After a brief yet excruciating moment, her shoulders sagged, her expression completely defeated. The tension hung in the air, and all that I could feel was a bubbling sense of satisfaction. With the faintest of mutters, she stumbled back to where the other passengers formed a linear queue. The crowd erupted into quiet applause, and it was as if a collective cheer broke the tension. I could hardly contain my smile. Not only had I managed to embarrass this woman who had disrespected me, but I felt a surge of camaraderie among the other travelers who had witnessed the whole event. As I stood there, realizing that I had unleashed a wave of justice felt in so many hearts, I caught my breath and began feeling a sense of positivity. The flight attendant thanked me for my contribution to maintaining order, and even though I had missed my chance to settle down before boarding, my excitement for my trip to Greece felt renewed. After that tense encounter, I boarded my flight with a grin on my face, filled with hope and happiness. I settled into my seat, looking out at the sprawling view of the airport as the engines roared to life. From that moment on, I decided that I would not let anyone take away my joy, and I would always stand up for what was right, no matter how small the situation may seem. Little did I know that the adventure I was soon to embark upon in Greece would be a glorious beginning to a newfound sense of empowerment and self-worth. As the plane ascended into the sapphire sky, I gazed out at the clouds and felt a surge of excitement, knowing that sometimes, all it takes is standing up for oneself to initiate a journey of self-discovery. I was finally on my way to live out my dreams, and nothing could hold me back from embracing every moment, not even entitled women at the airport. I was ready for sunshine, adventure, and all the delightful surprises that life had in store for me.